Hey everybody, it's Gordon. Welcome back to the shop, and thanks for joining me today. I have a treat. We're going to work on a Stanley No1. I'm going to skip all the useless talk and let's just get right to it. Let's take a look at what came in. So we have the tote and its knob. The knob, I haven't looked at it under magnification yet, but it looks pretty darn solid. So I love this tote. This is the earlier style, and in doing this project I learned a little bit about the geometry here, and that my Stanley No1 is a little bit later, and there are two totes along the way, so the design changed. So here we have an original, but it's missing a chunk. Okay, so we're going to do our best to replace that chunk and make that as seamless as possible. So what's important, we're going to go to the box of donor parts, and for this one I've selected another Stanley tote. Of course it's a much bigger piece, but it has some of the same hues and the same coloration. I like the same grain. If you look at it close to under certain light, it's going to have some of the same appearances. So this is going to serve as a component, and what we're going to do is cut this off planer. We're going to make it nice and flat so we can get a good bond, and then we're going to slice or swarf cut this base, and which is also rosewood, and join it on there so it'll be grossly oversized, but then we'll use our files and rafts and we'll contour it in, dial it all in. So we have a lot of material here, so I'm not concerned that we're going to lose the shape or geometry of the bottom. The symmetry will be very easy to recreate. So in the end, we're going to put a big chunk of rosewood on here, file it all down so that there's just a nice little sliver there, and then we'll make sure that we do our best to restore that finish and bring it back to normal. So there you have it. Let's go to the project bench. Okay, so let's take a look at my setup. And again, I've removed guards for the sake of this video, just to give you an illustration so you can see clearly. I'm not going to run it this way. But I've made a fixture, and if you watched my other videos, you know I'm a huge proponent of hot melt glue. And so what we've done is affixed this Stanley No1 tote right to my fixture. And there's a little bit of compound angles going on there. My goal is this. I just want a flat plane. I want to take a nice linear cut. I'm going to take one cut, and I want it to be a flat plane. And I'm kind of following this contour line. So there's a little bit of lineup by eyeball. I was able to turn this to where I was comfortable with it. And then I do have my blade set at an angle. And because of that, I'm not going to run a zero clearance insert. So with guards in place and then taking my time and sneaking up on this, the goal is to get rid of this uneven, unparalleled, break here on the side, and just get a nice planer cut that we can get a good bond to. So I will do this. Of course, it's going to be loud, so and let's put the saw back together and we'll get at it. Okay, dust collection off, saws off, guards off. Let's take another look. And what you'll see is that the fixture goes through, and now I have this nice flat surface. And that's the plane that I was looking for, right? There's my planer cut, and it's nice and flat. So now we're going to go ahead and bond a little bit bigger piece on here, and again, we'll see how that looks. Okay, so dust collection off, guards off, saws off, and I can illustrate again, or at least show you what I have going on. But there's my sled fixture. We're holding this at a peculiar angle, and I've got the saw blade tipped, and really all I was after was this flat, I need this planar surface right here to give us a good glue surface so we can get a perfect bond. We've opened up the pores. We've got a great surface to glue to. So now we're going to take our donor piece, do a similar cut in the opposite fashion, and then put him on here, and it'll look like a new appendage. And now with our donor part, same fixture, hot melt glue again. It's being held in place. It's super stout. There's a lot of bite there. And again, I'm showing you what it's going to look like. Guards removed, and same angle. We're going to just take a chunk right off the side, and it's going to fit nicely on our No1. So here we go. Dust collection on, saw on, and guards on. And there's the cut, or the remnants of the cut. So let's see what it looks like. I've kind of fabricated a zero clearance because I didn't want to lose our wedge. But this is what we were after. So again, a beautiful rosewood wedge. Hope we can see that okay. And here's our little number 1, and we're going just like this. So if you can see that in frame, we've got a beautiful one-piece repair. It'll bond super well. It's going to be over on the bottom. I'll be lower than I need to be, but we'll shape that all into place, and 2 Stanley totes become 1. Moving on. Okay, so this is going to be our tote glue up segment, and what I've done is cut the wedge. This is our replacement. Again, Stanley Rosewood. I'm going to match the grain. We're going to put these 2 guys together. This does have a hole in that wedge, which is not a problem because it's going to more or less be consumed once we cut it out. But you can see I'm doing a fairly significant oversize here because I like to bring things in. You know, let's not be greedy with our material and try and line this up and then get an issue. I'm gonna use an epoxy. I am gonna color it, and so it's got some tint to it. But we've got a single piece wedge in our original Stanley No1 tote. I'm wearing gloves because I just don't like epoxy on my fingers in case there's any squeeze out, which there should be just a tiny amount. And again, you can see the wedge is significantly oversized, which is good because then I'm gonna just file it, rasp it, and shape it to bring it back into size. And this way we're going to cover all of our angles, and we're matching the grain direction. So here we go. Let's do a glue up. I know that's way more than we needed, but I want to make sure we get our mix right. And then we're going to just use a dot of color. And when I mean dot, I mean a pinhead size dot is going to be enough to color this guy. So here we go. This is a 5-minute epoxy. I like to let them cure well beyond the 5-minute. It looks good. And I'm just going to introduce a dot. And you'll see how that gives us the color for this dye is brown. And just one pinhead will give me that kind of a light smoky brown all the way over to a dark, rich, reddish brown. And that's going to be our puddle. It's a nice fresh cut, super flat, open pores. I like working my epoxy in a little bit, maybe overkill. That's who I am. Squeeze out in the center in our counterboard we don't really care about. We'll clean that out.
Look where we are.
Okay, so the glued on piece, right? We grafted a piece on here, and I've done a fair amount of shaping. I've used a rasp and some files, and I've just kind of snuck up on it. The heel is not done yet. That's pretty rough. And but I've got my line kind of dialed in. But if you remember, this piece that I put on here was oversized quite a bit, and I've got a significant extension off the bottom. So there's way too much material sticking off the bottom. So I just used a little trick. Basically, I put it on a sled because I love hot melt glue and sleds. So I put it on a sled and I use this to line it up. So there's my cut. So with the guards removed, this is going to be our cut, and we're going to square that bottom off. And again, I'm not going to run it like that, but I'll go ahead and put stuff back on here, turn on some dust collection, and then show you after the cut. Okay, so guards back off for clarity, and I've dropped the blade so you can see. But basically I have this sled on here, and I made the cut, and what that's going to do for us is give us this near perfect flat bottom. And rather than go to the sandpaper file or put it in a vise and try and plane it, I just like fixtures. I like holding on to things and making sure that it's super tight. And you can see that I just barely touched the bottom of the original rosewood. And you can see we have a mismatch here, which is fine. We have the registration dimple, which we're just going to fill that on out. We'll shape the rest of this, blend it in, and we'll do this heel. And we are well on our way. Got some finish work to do. And then the bottom, of course, we got some geometry to clean up there. But the challenge now will be to match this same sheen and then put a few little what I call distress marks. We're going to want to match that finish on the body right down to the foot. So we'll have to dent this guy up since he's now sanded. But there we are. I'm happy with it at this point. I think we're on our way to a fully restored Stanley No1. Now to put this bottom geometry in, again, we already have the original dimple for the alignment in the front, and I know the diameter of this foot, and that's a vertical hole. So rather than put this in a drill press and use a lot of mechanical power and potentially lose hold or blow it out, I prefer to just do this by hand. So I just use a Dremel with a little a little rasp, more or less. It's a carving bit, and I'm going to clean this hole out. For this little guy, there's almost nothing to do there, so I'll just use a tiny ball nose. It's a ball nose, little ball burr, and I'll go ahead and round that back out, kind of bring that back to shape. But just a lot of handwork and finesse here at this point. Take your time. We've gotten to this point, you know, and again, this one was kind of a high risk thing for me because I didn't want to damage the original, the original tote at all. So, you know, during the course of work holding and clamping, there's always a chance that, you know, if you have any little imperfection underneath your bench or underneath the workpiece and you put a squeeze on this, you run the risk of just snapping it right in half. It's 100 years old plus, you know, so let's take care of it. And again, I'm trying to keep that original patina all over the whole thing, and I'm going to match that same patina and distress it here. So again, just take your time. This is all about patience and time. There's no rush here. This is clearly one of those little work pieces that, you know, if we make a mistake, we can't go backwards. I mean, if you were to damage the wood that we just put on here, clearly we could start over, and that'd be disappointing, but you could do it. My caution and my concern is always to make sure that we preserve the original character on the tote itself. So don't want to cause any issues over here or inflict any damage. Same with the bottom, you know, sneaking up on this to make this just perfectly flat. I don't want to expose the original rosewood. I don't want to cut into that. I didn't really want to do any damage or remove material. So it's all about sneaking up on it, making sure that we're super, super careful, and take your time. Okay, so we're getting close to the end on this one. Where are we? So I put a couple coats of shellac on this and did my best to match the finish. And again, that's what we were trying to go with on this number one, is that we're looking for, kind of that vintage look. I want it to be authentic. I didn't want to take away any patina. And now we have this repair, which is down here, as you know. And it's super smooth to me. When I look at that and I don't see any nicks, any marks, any stress marks at all, that kind of helps that repair stand out. So I'd like to distress it a little bit. So I'm going to put some little marks in here, just with various tools. I'll just use some things that, nothing, over the top. We're just trying to add a little bit of texture to it so that it has the same appearance as the rest of the tote. So I'll do that next. And our final little shot here, again, is our set. These were both sent to me together as a pair. The knob itself, under close inspection, has one tiny little stress crack in the base. I would leave it. I'm just not going to mess with this. I don't want to fill it. I don't want to try and do anything to this guy that would, take away from the value. So I love the condition. and it's a very nice set. And you saw how this tote came into us initially, and I'm really happy with where we ended up. So here's our Stanley No1 tote. It has been repaired. Try and give you some light angles there. So you can see that it's been lightly distressed, a little bit of inconsistency in the finish, which is going to kind of mimic what's been going on over the last 100 years. A very, very light cleaning, but I left the paint splatters and I left the other little things that were on it. I think that's important. The top, of course, is there. The bottom has been lightly colored to try and help that blend in so it doesn't jump out at us as being repaired. Although, again, under super close inspection, I can tell that this has been repaired. I did the work, so I know where to look. But I think, it's going to be a beautiful set. It's going to go right back on the plane and look amazing. Thanks for watching, and if you have an opportunity, give it a like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.